As we heard from the briefers once again, Sudan's crisis is deepening and the cost is being paid most acutely by the civilians. Even the United Nations peacekeepers have not been spared. Pakistan condemns the attack on UNISFA peacekeepers serving in Kadugli in what has been described as a deliberate drone strike against UN premises. We convey our deepest condolences to the government and the people of Bangladesh and to the families of the 6 fallen peacekeepers and wish a swift recovery to those injured. Attacks against peacekeepers are unacceptable and amount to war crimes. Those who target UN personnel must be identified and held accountable. Mr. President, this attack did not occur in a vacuum. The Secretary General's latest report on UNISFA had warned of the growing threats to peacekeepers, including the persistent encroachment of the Rapid Support Forces in UNISFA's operating environment. Nor is Kadugli unfamiliar terrain for such violations. We had already witnessed the appalling kidnapping of 60 peacekeepers and the seizure of UN assets and fuel trucks by RSF earlier this year. This council carries a responsibility to ensure that peacekeepers are not left exposed to predictable threats without consequence for those who attack them. Mr. President, only last week we heard UN officials caution against the risk of Al-Fashir type atrocities now happening in Kordofan, where RSF has been on a rampage, including killing of children in a kindergarten and attacks on schools and hospitals. The atrocities committed by RSF in Al Janaina and Al Fashir are still fresh in our memories. Before Al Fashir fell, this council and the broader international community were warned repeatedly of the consequences of inaction. Resolution 2736 demanded that the siege of Al Fashir be lifted and called for protection of civilians and humanitarian access. Yet, we saw defiance on the ground, followed by catastrophic outcomes, undermining the credibility of the Council. The lessons from these massacres are clear. Where siege tactics, starvation, indiscriminate attacks against civilians are not stopped, more grave atrocities follow. We cannot allow Kordofan to become the next chapter in the same tragedy. Recent developments, including attacks on towns such as Baba Nusa and Higlig, underline the risks of regional spillover in Abyei and South Sudan. Mr. President, humanitarian imperatives must also remain central to the Council's work in Sudan. The situation being reported from Kordofan and Darfur, besieged communities, collapsing services, restricted movement, and attacks on aid convoys demands our immediate attention. Sustained, safe, and unimpeded humanitarian access must be provided by all parties, and humanitarian routes should be kept open and protected. Mr. President, Pakistan has consistently encouraged the Council to welcome the steps taken by the Sudanese government in pursuance of its transitional roadmap, including the appointment of Prime Minister, His Excellency Mr. Kamil Idris, and his technocratic cabinet tasked with alleviating humanitarian suffering and advancing an inclusive political transition. There is no military solution to this conflict. The only durable path forward lies in a political dialogue and reconciliation. Pakistan therefore supports all genuine efforts and political processes aimed at achieving an immediate cessation of hostilities and ceasefire, protecting civilians, unfettered humanitarian access, and paving the way for a peaceful political transition that reflects the aspirations of the Sudanese people. The Council must support all such efforts and base its approach on the following essentials. First, preservation of Sudan's sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity. Second, rejection of any so-called parallel government or structures which undermine state institutions and risk fragmentation of the country. Third, immediate cessation of hostilities and ensuring protection of civilians, including urgent prevent mass atrocity risks in Kordofan. Fourth, unimpeded humanitarian access to all people in need of assistance all across the country. Fifth, ensuring greater coherence and complementarity between the various peace initiatives and mediation tracks that are currently active for the achievement of our common objectives. And lastly, maintaining zero tolerance for war crimes, including attacks against UN peacekeepers and humanitarian workers, with credible investigations and accountability of the perpetrators. The brotherly people of Sudan have suffered beyond measure. The guns must be silenced. Hopes for a brighter future rekindled, with a normalcy visible on the horizon. The Council must fulfill its responsibility towards that end. Pakistan will continue to support all such endeavors. I thank you very much.